stranded pandas calling out to you. Let's see. Make sure we're live. It says we're streaming to 2 of 2, I guess. Or no, that's the chat. Sorry, I'm looking at something different. Your channel. Well, everybody, if you're hearing me, I never know when to talk. No, that's the chat. It's funny. Sorry.
I'm now hearing a bit of an echo.
Yeah, sorry, that
from
was
your
that
voice.
I got it. I had it pulled up and
Okay.
But I muted it. Was just pulling up the chat, pulling up the YouTube to make sure we're streaming. Welcome everybody. Welcome. I think I just quoted John Oliver. That's how he always starts his show. Welcome,
Greetings and salutations.
Yeah.
All right, let me know when you're ready.
All right, I am ready. Wait, no, I'm not. Sorry. Hitting record. I always,
That's important.
when there's like 15 things like this, I've got like 6 windows open to make all this happen, and sometimes I forget to hit record.
Yeah,
luckily I've never actually missed a cast for that reason, but I wouldn't put it past myself. All right, starting the Altered Carbon cast, everybody. If you're in the live chat, we will be checking in with the live chat after we do the pod, like the main part of the cast. So here we go.
Today on Bingers Assemble, we're talking about Altered Carbon, Season 2, Episode 5, I Wake Up Screaming. There is a lot going on. We're talking about the governor's secret plans. We're talking about some hot Kovac action. And we're talking about Falconer and Poe getting lost in their own heads. All this and more after this commercial ad we have no control over.
You're breaking up real bad, actually.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. I heard all that, but it was a little. It may be.
Okay.
I wonder. Hold on. Let me do something.
I think I still have my new computer setup going, and the what do you call it? The wireless in this room is not fantastic. I actually got an extender that will be installing today, so that should help. It looks like I'm recording just fine.
Yeah.
But just
we'll
in case, I'm also closing down some windows.
I was more worried.
Let me know if
it's better already. I closed
the Twitch TV is probably pulling a lot of resources, so I might shut that down if I need to.
Yeah, if you need to, I'll let you know if it keeps getting bad or if you get bad on your end. But I think it might be me downloading too, and I just closed a couple things that should help. So
okay, yeah. Not so much porn, Matt.
I know. I had 16 different windows open, and I was really saving my place on all those porn videos.
Yeah.
Like I was into the plot of all of them.
Yeah, you gotta know how the story ends, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Bingers Assemble. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm Matthew S. Fox.
And today we're talking about Altered Carbon Season 2, Episode 5. And this one is about the... this one's got a lot going on, honestly. This is... We just found out that Falconer is responsible for killing all of the... founders, or is trying to kill all of the founders, and she doesn't know why, and it sounds like she has a fragmented personality, and they're hunting down the people who might have answers to that, and he's trying to get her somewhere she'd be safe, which is behind enemy lines of the Kel resistance. So this is an episode where basically Kovac, Falconer, and Trep travel to the resistance while Poe is discovering what the renunciation AI not AI what the renunciation VR experience is like, because he's trying to track down Harlan. So there's a lot in this episode. It just I felt like it was a little scattered at first, but I think it came together pretty well.
Yeah, like I think about how the first couple episodes I was a little like waiting for there to be more. It kind of felt like all the stuff they were holding back on, they dumped into this one episode. And I love this episode. I was so into it, and I feel like I need to go back and watch it 2 or 3 more times to get all of it. In terms of the overall pacing of the show, I wish they'd given some of this to us earlier,
Yeah.
It felt like we were slow burn, big dump all at once, and it's
Well,
kind of a nice way to like kick off the second half of the season. But it was a lot.
well, in the first in the first that's what I think is the problem with this episode for me, and I do like a lot of the stuff that happens and a lot of great character moments, but it kind of felt like most of this episode to me. So what we talked about early on in the season was how it felt like they weren't giving us the exposition we needed. And in this
Right.
episode, I don't feel like we got any more exposition. We just had a lot more happening. We got a lot of
Right.
exposition yesterday or the day before yesterday, but this episode, it's like a lot of things were happening, but like still not learning anything. It just felt like moving pieces around the board and getting them where they need to be for whatever next big moment they're going to have, which I think is going to be Kel actually encountering the Kellist resistance, finding out what the deal with Harlan is, because that's the big mystery now, or at least one of the big mysteries
Right.
now is where is Harlan? We thought he'd renounced, but where is he? And given the world that we're in, I have a feeling he is someone we already know, right? Like that just seems like a possibility at least.
I think that's a decent possibility. And I'd say I don't think it's just moving pieces around, because I think it really established what are going to be some of the major conflicts of the rest of the season. I think learning that the governor was actually much more in control of things, and like, yeah, you needed to set up the idea that behind it, but like to me that was a huge reveal. The governor like having had this whole plan to screw over her own cartel and take control entirely. Like I loved that. I
don't think she had that plan until this episode, did she?
I mean, they said that she had been in control of leaking all the stuff about Falconer, and granted that came out pretty recently, but at least I feel like she knew that they were plotting against her. You're right, that wasn't something from episode 1 necessarily because of the way they structured it up till now. But I just love that scene because it was such
I love
a
that
nice
scene too. But she says that the only reason she did it is because he brought up the cartel and she realized this was her opportunity for the power grab. So it sounded like
Right.
all this was actually her taking the opportunity she saw, not so much part of her plan from the beginning. But he does talk about her leaking the information about the Kellists, or at least Kel. For some reason, she wants the Kellist rebellion to have power of some type, and maybe it's just so that she can make them look powerful so that she can then turn and destroy them and look even more powerful. I don't know, but yeah, she took the opportunity to take over the entire cartel because they gave her all the power, which interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I saw that a little differently. I think we have been wondering this whole time, what is she up to? And is she sort of secretly a Kellist in her own way, or is she just using this to fight back against the Protectorate? And I feel like now it's pretty clear that that's what she's always been about, is that she has wanted to let the Falconer types survive, and maybe she even orchestrated what happened in the Circle. I'm not sure about that one. But that certainly she wants the rebellion to be strong enough that people are scared and thus give her all this power, and so she can then crush it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which is like the definition of hubris, because clearly she won't be able to. But I just loved the way that all played out, and especially the idea of like, let's give ultimate power to this one person because we trust them to use it for the good of all, and that person immediately turning on you. Like, I just thought that was so brilliant. It was such a nice way to see that dynamic play out.
Yeah. She keeps proving herself to be more powerful and more conniving than Yeager realizes.
Yeah.
So that's been nice to see from her character, who honestly I thought I just for some reason she gave off a different vibe to me when we met her, but I never really trusted her. But I thought that maybe she had a more complex motivation, which she may still. Like, I still think something's weird here. Where is Harlan? That's the big question. Where is Harlan? And like, did he know Kel was coming for him and he hid away? Did he know this was all coming? Also, speaking of Kel, it sounds like, and first off, let me just say we called some shit last season because
yeah, we did.
We talked about Reese leaving, and it would be very possible because they showed the idea that the snake and the dog could be re-sleeved into a human, or and vice versa. So we talked about the fact that we could absolutely see an elder this season, and they could be resleeved into a human. And it sounds like that is, at least at some point, in some way, what happened to Kel, because she says something's inside me, and it's like, and it's something, and it showed like something moving and throwing her down inside of this prison. And so like we called that shit last season. We were like, in season 2, this is something they could do. We've called a lot of stuff. I've been happy. I've really enjoyed this podcast, just like talking about all the. I love the stack technology and what all it means, and how talking about the different possibilities, and then they do them right in front of us, and it's a lot of fun.
I want to rain on that parade just a little bit, because I think we don't know yet what I'm not sold that it's an elder re-sleeved as much as it is like some kind of elder control in some way. But I certainly think like this is the elders' technology. They understand it, and so they can do things with it that we don't, as characters in the show, haven't imagined yet.
Right. It is not
that happening.
It is not an elder re-sleeved in the simple way that we were talking about, but it is an elder in control of a human body that is taking over a human body to do its bidding. Is kind of what
I'm certainly down with that.
Yeah.
And just on the governor, I think you're right. I think there's so much we still don't know, and to me the biggest question is like whatever Harlan is and whoever he is right now and whatever his agenda is right now. Is she working for him or is she working against him? You know, because I could easily see this be that Harlan had this big plot and he wants her to be the figurehead, and he wants her like that everything she's doing is because of what Harlan is doing behind the scenes. Or I could easily see it as she made a big power grab to try and overthrow her father, and part of why she wants but her father actually survived somehow and is still out there. And part of why she wants martial law is because she knows she needs to stop whatever machinations her father is doing.
Or one alternate theory, she is her father.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the first one for sure. But that's certainly a possibility as well.
Maybe she did try to overthrow her father, and he said no, but that's a good idea. I'll hide inside of you for a while. Just, man, there's so many. This world opens up so many possibilities. But yeah, I want to know where Harlan is, why he ran. I feel like if he ran, he probably knew, or if he's hiding in any way, he probably knew that the elders were after him. Right. And yeah, it just alludes to a lot. It alludes to a lot of information that the elders may be still somehow around and communicating with Harlan, and maybe communicating with the founders. Yeah.
Now, one thing that I've been thinking about, I'm wondering if you're getting the same association, and maybe this is in part because I'm currently watching Ozark.
Hey, me too.
Actually, Coffin and I were just talking about, and we may actually have her on to do a superhero ethics podcast about that. But in Ozark, obviously, and like a lot of criminal TV shows, the word cartel means a drug cartel. It means a criminal enterprise. And I think of cartel meaning a criminal enterprise of some kind.
Right.
And I don't know if that's just because that's a particular connotation and the word doesn't have to mean that, but
well, like, it means that in our culture, because cartels are generally illegal. Cartels are competitors that are working together, and so in there's where is it is like Brie, France or whatever, they have a cheese cartel, and it's a legal cartel. So there are legal cartels, but basically it's generally considered like anti-capitalistic because these people come together and they work together and they fix prices and things like that. Which basically what it is, it's people coming together to fix the system so people below don't have a chance of competing. OPEC is a cartel. I asked that because
I'm wondering if you had the same connotation. Every time she said that, I kind of was thinking of it being like kind of a shady underground thing, but now it seems like no, it's the official like ruling council of the planet.
Yeah, it can be OPEC, for instance, is a cartel. Like they are.
That's true.
They're I think that is that what the C stands for? Probably not. No, it's a countries, oil producing countries. No, but yeah, it is a cartel, like by the traditional definition of a cartel, but it's legal because the countries it's in say it's legal. But it's one of the reasons why a lot of Americans fought or like would really say that it's wrong, and like especially in earlier iterations, in earlier socioeconomic times, like the America really pushed back on OPEC, and they were saying they're fixing prices because it's exactly that. There's like no competition. They're all working together to say, hey, yeah, we agreed to charge this for our oil.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the meths all banding together to agree to do whatever they need to do to keep themselves being meths and only let other people in. Yeah.
Right.
So that's cartel, and that's why it's generally bad, because basically it keeps other people out from being able to compete, and a lot of the problems that you have, that me and you have talked about socioeconomically, like, or economically particularly, in our nation and in our world, and like you would say it's a problem with like just capitalism and all that. I actually think most of the problems are cartels, like not in name, but it's like a lot of things that keep people down are cartels, because the various people in power are conspiring together to keep themselves in power and only allow others up if they want.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, our country has become much more of an oligarchy in recent years, and that's 100% traceable to, I think, things we could describe as cartels. So I'd be with you on that one. And it's an interesting thing of, like, in the last season, it certainly seemed like all the meths, they were kind of part of, like, it was kind of like high society, you know, and they all knew each other and they all talked with each other, and when there was problems, they all kind of connected with each other. But here on Harlan's world, it seems like it's much more official. You know, they have like meetings around a table once a month or something like that. And so yeah, it's interesting to see how like it's getting formed into somewhat this different way. What did you think of? Because I think this was one of my favorite scenes in the show, but I'm wondering your thoughts. Kovac Prime, which actually the subtitles tell us that's how we should identify the original the Kovac who has been rebooted, who is working against our antagonist.
The one being played by, gosh, I keep wanting to call him Sam Wilson. What is his real name?
No, I'm saying Sam Wilson is our hero. I'm saying the other one.
Oh, they called that one Kovac Prime? Interesting.
Yeah.
My conception.
I think because the other one is it's Kovac and then Kovac Prime.
Okay, got it.
But anyway, the scene with Kovac Prime and the Dig AI.
That was the worst scene. Yeah, it was really hard to watch.
It was hard to watch, but it gave me chills. But I thought it was so good.
Me too.
Like, we've been talking all about this idea of, you know, are AIs real, and like, do they have full rights, and like, how does Kovac not being great about how he treats Poe, and we've kept hearing the AIs talk about how they don't like the way the humans treat them, and I feel like now we finally saw that just right, plain and simple. You know, the way Kovac is. There's one great line that I can't remember the exact wording, but he says, like, you know, you forgot that you work for us, or you forgot we never made you to be free. The fruit of the tree belongs to the tree. There's a number of lines in there that are just like, oh. He says there's one line I didn't fully. Second time Kovac did this first season too. He says a line that I'm just like, I gotta think about that one. That's very poetic. He says, "To the mind that is still, the universe surrenders." Yeah,
and that he says it in that moment, and that doesn't seem to fit. I get it from the perspective of what's the word I'm looking for? Marker. I get it from the perspective of like meditation, what that would mean.
Yeah, it's like a mindfulness idea.
Right, exactly. But why does he say that to her in that moment?
Yeah,
that doesn't that doesn't seem to track for me. But it sounds like just weird, just like that logic. I don't know. It's weird logic to use it in that moment. I guess he's saying like calm down, kind of. I don't know.
But the fact that line about the fruit of the tree, that really is the thing to cut into her like original boot ID, you know?
Yeah.
Into her original programming. It gave me chills, but then also the idea that like, even though that command had been executed, she was still fighting it. And watching the fight she was going through, it was done so subtly. Like, she wasn't like spasming or anything. But and I think we saw a single tear roll down. Like,
we did.
It was shot in a weird way, but I got the sense like she basically cried a single tear as she kind of gave in.
I did not find it subtle, but I found it very powerful. Because she's like shivering kind of and shaking with her like she's weeping at the same time she's trying so hard to like hold on to herself, but she can't. And you know what this also made me realize? Kovac has the power to do this to Poe. This is Kovac doing this to an AI. He has the
Oh,
power
yeah.
to do this to Poe, which means Kovac, our Kovac, has decided not to do this. He's decided that Poe deserves a choice.
Oh yeah, that's right, because he would know that, wouldn't he?
Yeah. So he has the power to do this easily, but he respects it, like it's kind of giving me chills to think about, because we've been talking about why is he being such a jerk to Poe about this. It seems out of character, but the truth is every moment he's not overriding him, he's deciding to respect him as a being, and give him the choice.
And especially because like when Kovac Prime does that, it's very clear this isn't the first time he's done that. It feels very natural to him to do that.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder if, especially because he was on Harlan's World, like we still have this big lack of knowledge about what happened to the archaeologues and all that, and why the dig IDs carry so much guilt. I do wonder if Kovac himself, like in his way back in time, was very comfortable and did some, pretty shitty things to a bunch of AIs, and that maybe he carries some of that guilt or some of that, like with Poe, it's going to be different. Because yeah, I hadn't even connected, but of course, whatever Kovac Prime does, that's a memory that Kovac carries. Not that specific thing, but that ability.
Right, that ability and that knowledge that that's a way to take over an AI, and it just shows that he is giving Poe the choice. He is not treating, and it shows a difference between Poe, or I'm sorry, Kovac and Kovac Prime. It shows this difference between them, and I'd really like to. My dream of how this season ends is Kovac and Kovac are going at it, which we'll talk about their fight scene, but I'm kind of annoyed at their fight scene. Kovac and Kovac are going at it, and the thing that lets our Kovac win is deciding to trust his AI, or deciding to rely, or deciding to give Poe freedom or something like that. Some decision he makes for Poe ends up being the thing that gives him the leverage against the other Kovac, because that's a lesson he's learned. That's a thing that he's learned over this time that this Kovac doesn't know. The thing that bothers me about their fight scene is I thought they were going to do it. At the very last moment, he says, CTAC training only goes so far. I've had better. But then he still wins. The Kovac Prime still beats him. And it really annoyed me, because I was like, I wanted him to win by some other means, not just outfight him, because our Kovac has had better training and is supposed to be a much better fighter than this younger Kovac.
Like I didn't get quite as much of this as I thought, but I liked that it seemed at first that they were sort of mirroring each other's moves. But I kind of wanted more of that, and I wanted it to be a little more explicit. But then, like I was kind of set up for some subtle version of the "but I'm not left-handed" kind of moment,
Exactly.
where Kovac,
exactly.
Our Kovac is able to be like, no, but look at this whole new set of skills. Let me fight with my left hand now, that you didn't expect.
Yeah. Can I throw out another problem with this whole old Kovac thing?
Go for it.
I think this is actually a plot hole, which kind of annoys me. Always annoys me. Why does old Kovac Prime know where she would feel safe? It makes no sense. Point. Makes no sense why that Kovac, unless he like had in the olden times, maybe he, as soon as he woke up, he assimilated the information of where the Kellis resistance hid and all that stuff. Maybe I guess that fixes the plot hole. That's some headcanon, but it seemed like he was using his memory. He was like, I know where he'd feel safe, unlike you other officers who've been here for weeks and probably would also know where she would feel safe. It felt strange. That seemed like a plot hole to me.
Yeah. I do think it's funny that like the first couple episodes you weren't totally on board with, but I obviously had a lot more problems with, and now I'm like totally on board with this episode and you have a bunch of problems. You always be a little bit flip-flopped there. But yeah, it's some of the Kovac Prime thing is it feels like it feels like a plot device, but it feels like a really fun one, and so I'm kind of willing to go with it. Especially because, and I know this is something you talk a lot about actually on the MCU cast, and I kind of wanted to pick a bone with you about it on over there. But I know you really believe that like the main character always has to have a character arc in every sort of season or movie or things like that. And I really like the idea that like, if the character arc is showing how has Kovac grown from who he used to be, having who he used to be actually running around as well is kind of a brilliant way of showing that. And like what we just talked about with the AIs is a great way to get into that.
Yeah, I will say that exact criticism is something I feel about this season, and I noticed it this episode. Actually, I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know why, but I am having a harder time connecting with Kovacs this season.
And
that's fair. The reason I think, and I tried to think about it a lot while I was watching it. He has not changed, and I'm trying. Well, I don't know that he is. It kind of is the bat. Like, I'm finding myself way more interested in all of the side characters this season. I'm more interested in Trep's story. I'm more interested in Kel's story. Yeah. I'm way more interested in Poe's story. I'm even more interested in Dig's story, and I don't know why. And I was like, is it Anthony Mackie? Is he not eliciting the same sort of pathos that the other actor did for me? Is it? And I think it's just that, like, that Kovacs was still deciding who he was and still trying to figure out who he was and what he was going to do. Yeah. And this Kovacs has not had an arc. This Kovacs so far, I mean, he's had the arc of he learned a thing that she's alive and now he's trying to save her. And even this, like, he found out she's killing his best friend. He still hasn't really he had a moment this episode where he said he's trying to forgive her. He's trying like hell to forgive her. I'd kind of like to see a little more of that, like, where he actually is struggling with the decision of whether Kel is worth saving or not, because right now he's so on board. He's been so single-minded this season that I don't know that he hasn't had an arc to me. He's been, I'm here to save Kel.
I think there's a couple of things there. Part of it is that I do disagree with you that I don't think you always need to have an arc. Like, to me, sometimes you can have a Batman movie where Batman starts as Batman and ends as Batman, and that's okay because all this other stuff happens around him.
Let me say, I don't think they have to have an arc. I think to be interesting, they have to have an arc. And I found myself with having that same problem with this. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, but I guess that's kind of what I mean is that I think I don't think it's a problem to have a movie, to have something around a central character, but where the central character is doing something that makes sense for their character and helps drive the story, but isn't as interesting as everybody else's story.
Yeah, I agree. Buffy is one of my favorite shows, and I almost never care what Buffy's thinking.
Yeah, no, I agree. But Buffy, to me, is far and away the least interesting character on that show.
Yeah, same here. Every other character around her. So I'm on board with that.
I think. Well, but let me just say specifically about Kovacs. I do think there's two things happening. One is I'm having trouble connecting Anthony Mackie Kovacs to Riker Kovacs.
Same here.
And I think it's in part because there's not enough about his character that, like, if you weren't telling me constantly that this was Kovacs, I feel like they didn't establish, like, specific mannerisms that the original Kovacs did that this one is doing, or that the Prime one was doing. Like, I can tell myself they are, and I believe it, but there's nothing that just makes me look at Anthony Mackie and go, oh yeah, that's the same one as this other one.
Yeah.
And it's, and maybe it's little things like, when they gender flipped the grandma and put her into the body of the thug, like, she spoke in a different accent, and she had very, very different linguistic things.
Yeah, and it's something that we talked about.
There's nothing that, like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
Yeah, and it's something. Yeah, it's something that we talked about in the very first episode, and it's that Anthony Mackie is not doing any kind of impression of the previous actor, and I think that right. While I don't know, in a way is interesting and bold. In a way, it kind of just feels like Falcon on screen to me so far this season. I haven't. I need a few moments where Anthony Mackie, like, feel. I need him to have those, like, quiet moments. Last season, the times we got to know Kovacs were when he was talking to the memory of his sister, was when he was talking to the memory of Kel, and then when he was talking to himself in the final episode. Those are moments, like, he is a man who doesn't really let people in, and so not having any of those moments this season, even in front of Poe, like, he told his old friend that he regretted that he already betrayed a person today, talking about Poe, but he still doesn't tell that to Poe. Like, he he keeps his feelings inside. And so last season, the writers realized that, and they gave him moments to show who he was. When he's struggling with the decision of whether to help Bancroft in the first episode, he has that like 3-minute long conversation with Kel, and he realizes what he's got to do. In this, so far, he's just kind of been the brooding, silent guy, and they haven't given him those moments. So I think that's the problem with this season. But I'm still enjoying it, but I'm not enjoying his character as much.
Well, and I would say two things, because one is kind of agreeing with you, but I also think there is more of an arc than you're seeing. But in terms of Mackie, I don't think that's Mackie being a bad actor. I think it's the writing, because I think the more I think about it and the more I watch Mackie, the more I think they didn't plan to have a new actor for season 2, because like I'm trying to think of like what could they have Mackie do that would be a clear callback to what the Riker actor did in season 1, and I don't remember much. Like there weren't specific mannerisms or like vocal tics or like specific ways of thinking, catchphrases that he had that if Mackie would also do would connect the two. The way like the accent for the grandmother or like the particular speech patterns that the grandmother had. Yeah. And it makes me think that if they'd already been planning this, then the writers would have written that in somewhat in season 1.
Right.
So I think that's it, and it's, I love the idea, but it's like with in Doctor Who, for example, the Doctor always has the sonic screwdriver and always has particular ways of talking that go across every actor. And we don't have that. I think that's, and the other thing I think is connected to that is we're not getting the voiceovers. I think it's kind of what you were talking about. In season 1, we had a lot of Kovacs giving voiceovers. And I think if Mackie was doing more of those, it would help me to connect the two more, as well as I think because we don't have that, we don't have a picture into his inner mind. And so that's even more so why we don't have the arc, at least as visible. I will say this is the arc that I think we are getting, though, which is, and it's a weird one, but I think it's kind of appropriate. I think the character's kind of taken a step backwards from season 1, because season 1, he really grew. He really tried to kind of become this, not be just this broken, cynical person and go out into the world and try to make things better. And then he had to kill his own sister, and it was heartbreaking and terrible. And he kind of decided the only thing that makes sense for him anymore is to find Falconer. Falconer was the entire shift in his personality. She totally changed who he was, which this season is kind of reminding of us with seeing the old Kovac. And so, to me, he's a little one note, but he does seem very realistic as the person who is just decided to give up on anything except this quest. And so nothing really matters except this quest. And it's becoming more and more so because he spent so many decades working on the quest without it coming true. So I feel like it's almost more of a straight line than an arc, but it does seem like it's a very believable character direction. That I imagine, like you said, there's going to be some kind of a break when he realizes what has he become by becoming so single-minded on this. Especially what I would really love is if he realizes he has made Falconer what his sister made him. Because I think there's a real parallel being built there. And what I would love to see is him having a moment of realization of that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I love all that, and I do think they will get somewhere. I think that they have a plan for him, but it's exactly what you just described, which I thought your line was very. It's not the whole conversation we're having here is, does he have an arc? And you said, I guess it's more of a straight line. That's the point. Yeah. A straight line is not an arc. This season, he is a character. He's an interesting character, but he is the same character he left. He shouldn't be. That's part of the problem. He shouldn't be. I guess
what I mean is, though, it's a straight line going in a particular direction. I think the character is changed a lot from season 1 and has a way to change again. But you're right. He's not evolving as far as we've seen him.
And I just don't agree that he has evolved since the first episode, except he's evolved in the information he has gained. He is the character who left that hotel last season. He walked out of that hotel last season to go give Riker's sleeve back. Last time we saw him, he's like, I'm going after Kel, and I'm going to give Riker's sleeve back. And then the next time we see him, it's that guy plus 30 years of time. you know,
Right.
and then he has been that guy, except the only thing that he's learned is information. He learned that Kel's still around, but he hasn't changed in the same way that I'd like to see a character do to make them more interesting. And in the first season, he changed a lot. He really developed throughout the season. As you said,
I agree with that. I think part of what the writers are trying to say is that the Kovacs actually had a major character arc in the 30 years or 50 years between the end of last season and this season. And so we're not trying to take him on a new arc. We're trying to show you who he has become to set up yet another change. And you're right, that's not as inherently interesting as getting to watch the change itself. Yeah. I do find it interesting getting to see it slowly unveil and to see all the different ways it plays out. But I think especially because it doesn't feel as connected to the original Kovacs, it does feel like we're just seeing, okay, Anthony Mackie showed up to be this new version of Kovacs, and he's just being it again and again and again.
Yeah, it feels to me almost like it feels when you get a James Bond story where it's just a new James Bond, and it doesn't have to connect to the old James Bond, except all the minor characters are still connected in some way. Excuse me.
I guess. But I feel like, when you switch from Sean Connery to Timothy Dalton or Pierce Brosnan, they're always playing the same character. And This one does feel like I do have a real sense that Kovacs went through some real change off screen. And I think that's the difference for me.
Yeah,
but
to me, it just feels like time. It would have maybe been
better to see that instead of just learning about it.
Yeah, to me, that just feels like time. What would have made me, I think, if I were to rewrite this season, which love to do that, I would have had Vernon, and possibly we have Poe, and Poe's been super interesting this season, and part of what he's had Lizzie to talk to. I would love to see Vernon, or even the Bancrofts, or we have this past of Kovacs. He imagines these characters from his past, enemies or friends, and talks to them. And I kind of wish we got a little bit of that this season, and I'd know where he's coming from and the decisions he's trying to make, and his actions would have more meaning. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think we've expressed our feelings over Kovacs a lot.
I'll say just one last thing on that, which is that I wish they hadn't decided to have so much conflict between him and Poe, because I feel like if Poe was the one who was saying who was able to kind of be the voice he was bouncing off of, who was because actually I remember who was reflecting back who he used to be. His arc that he went through off screen would be a lot more apparent. And I'm remembering actually when we watched season 1 and we said, oh, this is interesting. Maybe instead of him talking to himself all the time, he'll be talking to Poe all the time.
Yeah, you mean episode 1?
Because that's not happening either. We're just not getting any sense of what is happening inside Kovacs' head.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the problem with Kovacs as a character is he is a collection of the tough guy stoic tropes. And like you said, he doesn't have a lot of things that are signature to Kovacs. They tried, in the very first episode, he does the thing where he takes the drug through his eyeball, which is not a Kovacs specific thing is the problem. But I think it was supposed to be a visual signal that this is Kovacs. He did that as the lounge singer though. That's not even it's just a thing we'd seen the original Kovacs do, and he does it as a lounge singer. Right. So they're doing a few visual cues, but there's nothing that signature to the Kovacs character except for the struggles he's been through, and we're not getting those on screen. We're kind of just getting stoic tough guy tropes and no inner monologue and no inner struggle. But hopefully that'll change. I would have loved to seen, Vernon or Bancroft or Mrs. Bancroft or particularly Ortega showing up, and people that maybe he's lost since then, or maybe he hasn't lost them. He just carries them with him because those were his family for a time, just like he does with Kel and Ray Lynn, throughout the course of the show. I would have liked to seen that this season, but that's probably actor issues too.
It's sort of a biting off too much, because it's if you change the actor playing Kovac, but put him with all those same characters, then you still get to see those same dynamics. But
Yes.
changing the actor and putting him into a whole new set of situations, it's different.
Yes.
And I'll use that actually to transition to something I realized we've not seen at all. Neo-Catholics seem to be completely gone. Like that whole plot line is over, which I think is it makes me wonder, like, was that just something on Earth, or is it because of the effects of season one, like that sort of religious idea has died down somewhat, which would somewhat make sense because a lot of those people would have literally died out by now.
Yeah, they would have literally
but
let
yeah.
out, or now the government has a rule that they're allowed to spin them up if they want to, and so who knows? There could have been a Neo-C war where the Neo-Cs went against the government, or there could have been a deterioration of the faith because so many of them are, what's it worth being a Neo-C if Neo-Cs tell you that you're not allowed to get spun up again, but the government's spinning them up anyway. Like then you have to just kind of hope that's like being a Neo-C starts to be like, oh well, maybe I don't want to believe that because if I believe I'm going to hell and then the government can spin me up anyway, I don't want that. It's also possible that just the people who founded this planet, just like you have with countries here, people have different beliefs, and it's possible that there just never has been a strong Catholic presence, Neo-C presence on Harlan's world. Have you watched any of The Expanse?
No, I haven't. I heard really good things though.
One of the big plot points of season 1 is the Mormons have a ship that they are planning to travel to a distant galaxy to start their own sort of like galaxy. So they built a galaxy spanning ship that they're about to get on and travel. And it's just kind of interesting. It's like taking a faith from today and putting them into the future, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're gonna grab this ship and go off and start our own planet, which it ties into sort of the Mormon faith and stuff. It's just interesting. So I can imagine in this world, maybe whoever started Harlan's world, which we know were these founders, maybe they just weren't religious people, and so it just never really got a foothold in this, or not that particular religion.
What else from this episode grabbed you?
Well, something I've been talking about since season 1, or when he finally finds her, him viewing her as the version of herself, viewing Kel as the version of her, the idealized version of herself, not herself, and she just straight up says that this episode. So I was very satisfied to get that finally, just like very directly. You're so blinded by this woman you think I am, you can't see the woman I am now. He says, you can't fix me, talk. You want to turn me into the woman you love. Which was interesting.
And are you also getting the, like, that feels very much like what Raylene did to him?
You can, no. Well, yeah. See, no, I don't. Because she knew that she would have to change him when he got there. Like she knew, that's why she didn't introduce herself at first. That's why she didn't come up and tell him, hey, I've done all these things. She knew that her brother was not the guy who was, as Kel calls him, he's the man with the boy inside. He was a hopeful, sort of good man, and she knew that he was not going to be on board. That's why she lied to him to begin with. Like, she lies to him from the very top. She's always been kind of a villain. The way she killed off all the Kellists. So I don't think that's the same. I think that she had a love for him that she held on to for centuries, which is the same. But I don't think that she had the same, like, false view of him. At least she wasn't expecting him to show up and be a certain way that he wasn't. I think he was kind of what she was expecting when he got there.
Yeah, I think it's not an exact parallel by any means, but certainly I feel like the sister seemed to be very surprised that he wasn't willing to go along with the stuff that she had done. And the other part of it, to me, that's the connection, is that Raylene also, like, was willing to sacrifice more and more in order for the goal of getting what she wanted. And it definitely seems like he's willing to do that too. It's not a complete parallel by any means, but it's definitely something I'm picking up on. And you may be right.
I'm sorry.
Won't see more of it.
Will you say that again? I kind of missed.
Sure.
He's willing to sacrifice what?
I think you're right. It's not an exact parallel by any means. Um, but it feels like that there's two places where it's a very strong connection. One of which is Raylan definitely did have an idea, like a version of him in her head that wasn't him.
Sure.
She was deeply surprised that he wasn't like, oh, now my sister's here and she's a meth, so I'll be a meth too. Of course I want to do this. And the other connection is that Raylan was very willing to say, well, I'm willing to make any sacrifice in order to, and to sacrifice others, any like moral sacrifice in order to be okay, in order to get my brother back. And it does feel like there's some lines Kovacs won't cross yet, but he's willing to write off Poe if Poe can't help him in the quest. He's willing to throw others aside. Poe is not as Kovacs. Kovacs is not as far down that road as Raylan is yet, but I definitely feel like there's a parallel there. And maybe I'm just projecting that and just kind of headcanoning it.
I think you're right.
I think there's a decent possibility that someone's going to say to Kovacs at some point, like, "Are you kind of being your sister here?"
Yeah.
Or he'll have that realization.
Yeah, I do think that's possible. I also think that you made a good point when you talk about her. She did. So now that I'm rethinking it, she did think that he would show up and be happy that they could be meths together, I think she had the general idea that the reason he was doing what he was doing was to the reason he was doing what he was doing was with the Kellist was because he loved Kel. Like, she almost viewed the entire Kellist resistance that he was a part of as follower, like he's following her like a puppy dog. He's not following who she was or the kind of decision she was making. He wasn't trying to be a good guy. He was just trying to be with the girl he loved. And that's kind of the question. And this season actually might be a test of that even more, because now he has to look at the actual woman he loves and make the decision: is she worth saving? What did you think of her wanting Trep to shoot her if she started to lose herself again?
I'm not sure about that, because there's a part of me that felt like it felt a little forced, and I think it doesn't feel like it would fit with who Falconer used to be, because the Falconer who used to be was like, yeah, of course, let's kill the elders slash not the elders, but kill the
Myths,
the founders slash meths. I feel like if the understanding is that it's about, she doesn't know who she is, and so she doesn't want anyone else having any control over herself, and she hates that feeling, like, that does make sense to me. But I feel like we need to know a little bit more of who Falconer is right now in order to really believe that that's what she wants.
Yeah,
like
I didn't
like
buy it.
They're telling me that that's what she wants, but they haven't shown it to me.
Yeah, I didn't buy it that Kel or Trep really would choose a founder's life over Kel's. And if that's the stakes, now it'd be one thing if she had done some other horrible things. We do see her in the market, like killing other random people, it seemed like. But I don't think she RDs any of them. I think she just kills their sleeves. But it does seem like she's doing things she doesn't want to do, and nobody wants to lose control of themselves. But the idea that Trep was on board and was just like, yeah, sure, I'll kill you. What did you think about Kovacs killing Trep's dad?
Oh, Kovacs Prime?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kovacs Prime killing Trep's dad.
Yeah, you said that seemed out of character in the chat, and I feel like it was actually supposed to be like, no, that wasn't character for who he was back then, because he seems wild and reckless. I mean, more than anything, he seems like, the kid who was adopted, and all he wants to do now is please, the colonel who has been his idol all this time. And I feel like especially like that version of Kovacs, I think, was so prideful and was kind of out of control, and that's part of why Falconer really helped him. And in the same way that he's very willing to sort of like treat the AI as, you're just here to be a tool for me. His justification for RDing the dad was, I didn't need him anymore. And so to me, it really fit with his idea of like, I can do anything to anybody if I don't need them. Their only value to me is how I need them. Especially if, but again, I'm headcanoning some of this because we haven't gotten enough time to really get to know these characters. But the way I would understand it is he also is probably feeling this incredible like need to prove himself because he becomes this terrible thing. And so he needs to kind of show I'm not that. I don't want for a minute you to think that I'm disloyal or that I'm not just as ruthless and heartless as I used to be. That's the headcanon I can add to make it all make sense in my head. But I do feel like maybe in part because we wasted so much time in those first couple episodes not really doing much. I want, I want like 4 or 5 more scenes to establish who Falconer is and why she's doing what she's doing. I want 4 or 5 more scenes to establish who Kovacs Prime is and how he feels about the Colonel and how he feels about what's going on, because then I think it would justify what's happening. Like,
yeah, it's hard for me
all
because
of these things can make sense based on interpretation, but I want to see more of what that interpretation is.
Yeah, it's hard for me because I feel like we were told from the very beginning, like even at the very, I mean, I know he kills his father and everyone judges him for that. You know, he's the last envoy. He's this guy with all these crazy things, but his first sin is he killed his father, you know, but the truth is he was protecting his sister in that moment.
Right.
And so like he's been a like protective sort of a force for good since he was a child, even if he's willing to do the violent thing. And we've never really seen him, even in season 1 at least, be a brutal guy. Even in his Kovacs Prime form when he's working for SeaTac, like, and maybe it's just because we haven't seen much of that guy, and maybe this is exactly the guy he used to be. But I just never got that impression that as a SeaTac officer, he was the kind of guy who would break the law, as far as I understand. Like, I don't think he had any kind of right to RD the dad there, you know?
Well, but remember, the person who is his other and role model, the Colonel, who we haven't seen it much now, but we really established in season 1, like he hero worships this guy.
Sure.
This guy has said the situation is so crazy that I'm willing to break the law by double sleeving you because that's what we need. And again, I wish there'd been more of this conversation to fill in these gaps because I'm probably headcanoning like crazy. But to me, it makes total sense. Like, to me, the next logical step there is Kovacs thinking, if he can break the law, so can I. And that this is what's needed. And I do think there's a protective element because we've seen this idea that Harlan's world is more dangerous and more scary because of this rebellion. Now you have to be willing to put yourself in a pretty screwed up mindset to not think the rebellion's a good thing. But if you can get there, then I think it's easy to think,
I don't know if that's
in order to protect
true.
all the people on this world, I have to do whatever I need to stop Falconer and this version of Kovacs. Right.
I don't know if that's true. Your idea that you have to be really messed up to think that the Kellists are right. Like, you see it in Raylene. I think Raylene in the first season, when she says, I don't want to die, you know, like when she says, I don't want to die and I don't want to bring death back. Like, can you imagine a world where we've vanquished death? And like, if you still have hope, you don't see the ills of society. And we've basically solved all disease, and not just disease, all accidents, all forms of death. And then a lady named Kel comes around preaching that we need to stop the salvation. Like, I think there's a complete case to be made for these Kellists are not, you know, it's not a crazy thing to believe in that the Kellists are terrorists who want to, you know, destroy their society.
But well, I think it again depends on like the parts of the world we haven't gotten filled in yet, because my impression was that most people don't have access to that ability to keep resleeving forever because it's so economically stratified, and that because of like, and then also this version of the rebellion seems to be much more about taking down the meths than it is about bringing back death. But anyway, that's kind of a tangential point to the main thing.
Honestly, it reminds me so much of the conversations we have about. Again, back to billionaires, which is very much what these meths are analogs to. But like, this is you know, and it fits that you would not think this was logical. But there are a lot of people in this world who are poor, who believe very strongly that the rich should be able to, you know, should be able to be rich, and it's not an illogical thing. It's a hope thing. It's a believing in the system thing. Now, you can talk about how the system's broken.
I know you want to have that debate. I think you're really twisting my words here because that's not what I meant at all. I'm just going on. I think the show has tried to tell us that most people support the Falconers. If I'm wrong on that, then that's wrong. But I think that that has nothing to do with my economic beliefs or anything like that. But that's also tangential to my main point of what I'm trying to say is that I think that why
you broke up real
this
bad.
version of Kovacs would be willing to take that step. Does that make sense?
You broke up real bad. Will you repeat
I'm sorry, say
that?
again?
You're breaking up real bad. Will you repeat that last thing?
Okay, sure. But did you hear the first part about why I'm trying to get away from the billionaires thing? Because I think you misunderstood me there.
I guess so. No, I was not. I was not saying you were saying that. I was saying you were saying that you didn't think this world. You thought it was illogical for people to support the idea of the stacks, like to think the Kellis. I wasn't saying you were saying that. I'm saying that there's a clear analog in our own world. I'm saying that like I don't think it's illogical that a lot of people would find the Kellists to be. To be. But, I'm not saying you're saying that. I wasn't putting words in your mouth.
You're still not hearing what I'm saying because I thought the show was telling us that most people do agree. I'm not saying anything about whether they should or shouldn't. I'm just saying what the show is trying to tell us.
Right.
I know you want to have the billionaire debate. This is
no,
not
I don't.
The time
I don't.
For it, I promise.
I don't. I wasn't trying to get there. I'm trying to make a clear analog that I think that like people want to believe this system works in this world, and I think there's a lot of people. We're seeing mostly people who are working on their on the side of Falconer, basically. But I don't think that, especially in the first season, I don't think we get the impression that most people want to destroy the system. I think we get it. I think we don't get that impression at all. I do think that maybe on Harlan's world, like kind of like in a Firefly way, we're on the Outer Rim. I think that maybe in Harlan's world there are more people, and we're also in the home of Kelchrist. So like maybe there's more of a population here that believes that. But I don't.
Let me try and restate this because I think I can maybe better. Because the only reason I was making that point is about what Kovacs believes. It's not that I think everybody wants to overthrow the system. I don't think that they're all SJWs by any means. It's that I think that on this particular world, most people probably are like, I don't really love the rebellion. I also don't really love this authoritarian government we have. I just want the fighting to stop.
Yes, that's exactly right.
But that Kovacs is able to believe that the government is pure and great and that the protectorate is pure and great and wonderful, and the rebellion is terrible and evil, and that if he stops the rebellion by killing Falconer and the other Kovacs, that he is protecting everybody. And so that's all I'm saying is that I feel like that to Kovacs' perspective, you can justify any and all actions because the colonel says it's okay and you are protecting. So that's the connection I'm making. Is I feel like him taking steps like RDing Trek's father is to me very much in line with a character who kills his dad, because it is an act of protection if you believe that that's the evil that you have to be protected from.
Right. I agree that is true. I still think that killing the dad in that moment, because he's not a threat, there's nothing like him smashing his stack. I mean, even the other CTAC they're not CTAC, they're Protectorate now, but even the other Protectorate officers like, what are you doing? Like that's not an okay thing, and I don't know. It just didn't seem like the Kovacs we've seen yet. Now they're showing us a new Kovacs, kind of filling in the blanks of who Kovacs was at a time. So it's fine. Like I don't think it's impossible to say that, but like I just think that it was a little brash. And you're right about the way that most people feel on this world, because we got that in the first episode when he shows up on Harlan's world. She says, forget his name, the Kellis leader.
It's like one syllable. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like Emmett or something. Anyway, she mentions the Kellis leader, and the entire crowd boos really hard, and they're booing the Kellis leader. So like there's a whole mass of people, all the people in that square that hate the Kellists and hate the terrorists that they think they are. And then she says, we've made peace with them, and then everyone cheers. And I don't think that everyone necessarily loves their government, but I do think there's a lot of people that are fully on board with the system that they have and don't want. They want to keep believing that maybe if they work hard enough, they're going to be able to achieve.
We're spending so much time on something that was very tangential to the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
Agreed. I fully agree with you. Sorry, I'm just getting really put down a marker here. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I don't want this recorded. I'm just getting a little frustrated because I feel like I've tried to change the subject from that like 5 times now.
Okay.
So I agree with you, and let's just kind of move on if we can.
Okay.
No, yeah, I agree with you. And I think more than anything, I think what we're seeing here is that there's so much writing that we just didn't get. You know, I feel like I can make a story that connects all these different Kovaches, and it makes sense to me, and that I think is kind of being loosely implied. But you're right, we didn't see it yet. It wasn't. There's just so much with these characters. I feel like that we haven't had time to explore.
Right.
I get why it's frustrating, and like to me, it's a headcanon I can easily make. But I think you're helping me remember, like it is a headcanon, you know, because we haven't seen why Kovach would do this.
So I guess when I bring that up as out of character, I guess I should say I don't consider that a criticism of the show. I think what I'm trying to say is that was shocking to me that he would do that. So we are learning a thing about his character that this is out of character for every Kovach I've seen. So that's a big deal, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm not saying the show is wrong or that this is bad. I'm saying this is a big deal. Is this who Kovach was? Then like he's kind of different than I kind of have pictured him, and I think that's because in season 1 they don't if they had shown him being this brutal to someone, if they had shown him killing an innocent man in this way in season 1, it would have been a harder turn to make him the protagonist again. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think at this point they don't want that, and it's just kind of convenient writing. But I did not know he was this guy, and this is revealing something about him. So yes, I don't even think it's necessarily headcanon or anything. It's just this is who he is. It's out of character from everything I know, and that is shocking to me. That is all. Yeah. That's my original point. That's all I'm getting at. Like, I don't think any of that other stuff matters. It's all just that like this is a shocking thing. It's different from everything we've seen.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think you're right, and it's weird because we talked about the character arc. It's almost kind of like showing a character arc going backwards. You know?
Yes.
Like
yes.
It's.
Well,
yeah,
see,
they're trying to do something really subtle, and I feel like I love what they're trying to do. I feel like their execution's about 75% right now.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is like I am super interested in Kovach Prime. Like I'm super interested in where he's going, and he's got a lot of things to learn and decisions to make, and like and I don't feel that way about our Kovach yet. And so that's all neither here nor there. But yeah, that's all why that is all interesting to me, and I find Kovach Prime to be very interesting because he is. Can he make the same turn? And it's kind of like who you are versus who you will become, and if you see who you will become, does it change who you think you are, and all of that. It's very interesting. The view of yourself, them two having that fight in the woods, and kind of having to view themselves for it's like looking at the past and looking at the future, and I don't know. It's very interesting. I love this episode. So I don't mean to shit on it by any means. I really love this episode. But I just found I find these two things odd. I don't find them bad necessarily.
No, that's legit. I'll say there's one moment that I'm really hoping for, which is I want the moment when Trek figures out that Kovach Prime RD'd her father, because I want her to confront Anthony Mackie Kovach and him have to wrestle with like, I didn't do that, but a version of me did do that, and how to like because he can't just say like, well, I wouldn't do that, because clearly he would have, but maybe this version of him, like there's just so much complexity to that scene, and I really hope we get to see that.
That's a really great point. Really, really great point. I love that.
Yeah. Anything else from this episode you wanted to touch on? We've gone pretty long already.
Yeah, we're kind of long. We got a couple of pieces of feedback, and I got a couple things. We didn't talk much about the construct that Poe was in. I really enjoyed that scene. I thought it was awesome. I liked the line, "What's better to be happy or to be sane?" That was fun. I love all the stuff they're really putting Poe through some stuff. I don't really. I loved it. I loved him destroying the construct, or at least partially, before they kicked him out. I just loved Poe kind of at his powers, and at the same time using his flaw as a power. That was kind of powerful. Yeah, just loved it. I love the callback to the drain shot from season 1 with Kel in the shower.
Oh yeah, that was such an effective thing, and seeing the emblem of that hotel, that was so good.
Yep, love it. I loved it in season 1, and I loved it here. Anil is on a mining mission. So we know that Kel has been brought back with some sort of elder technology or elder DHF or elder soul inside of her or something. So I have a feeling that's connected to this mining mission that Anil was on. I also think it's probable that our Dig 301 will have something to say when she realizes that like something is going on at the archaeological sites.
Yeah. There's clearly some part of the story about the archaeology sites and the archaeologists who all died that's going to tie into everything. I don't know what that is yet, but I'm definitely interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, we still don't know why they died. And she says, like, actually, Poe says, "Do you expect me to do nothing? Is that what you did for the archaeologues?" And she later says, like, "We did nothing, and I don't want to do that. I want to fight. I want to fight and not tell you this information." Poe and Dig's storyline is the highlight of the show for me right now. I really, really I just love Poe as the AI, and I love Dig, like, giving him this other stuff to talk about. I don't know, having someone to play off of.
I unfortunately need to wrap up really soon, but maybe we can like put a pin in to like let's talk more about the archaeologists tomorrow or next time we record, because that's such an important topic. Absolutely.
Do you have 1 minute left?
Yeah, let's go over the feedback.
Feedback real quick. Okay, let's run down this feedback real fast. Drew Gretsch just says this episode was awesome. I agree. Andy Joe Show says he emailed us. Hi guys, I really like this episode. I thought Poe being a fake construct was really cool. It's something evil that feels like a perfect world. That's the kind of storyline that I really like. I love when they did that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4 with the framework. Yeah. I also,
it's a really good connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. I also really liked the story of Kovacs Prime. I would really like a spin-off series about when he was with the Protectorate or something to that effect. Thanks for the awesome podcast and keep up the great work. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I would love something about Kovacs Prime. What I want to see, I'm kind of thinking of like the Vampire Diaries and then the Founders TV show or the originals, whatever that name is. I would love to see basically like the beginnings of the Meths, like I would love to see something set in the time when they're just beginning to figure out elder technology and stack technology. And if maybe a Kovacs comes later, but like if Kovacs Prime is kind of running around in that world, I think it'd be such an interesting thing to see how that all began and unfolded.
Well, I think we're going to get something like that this season, actually. Not, obviously a show, but we're going to find out what the Founders found out about the Elders and how it all began. And we've got this group of Founders. I think that's interesting. Yeah, man. Thanks for feedback, guys. Let me just say, over on the chat today, we were talking about dinosaurs, and I just wanted to ask you, Matthew, can we start calling dinosaurs elders?
Call the. I thought you were going to ask me what my favorite dinosaur was. But yeah, I think we can call the elders dinosaurs. They sort of have a little bit of a reptilian look to them.
So no. I mean, in our world, can we start calling dinosaurs elders?
Oh. I mean, I feel like they've kind of got to, give us some sort of alien technology first, but that's certainly a possibility. I like the idea.
I just like calling them the elders. It's like a nice, it's more reverential than dinosaur, I feel like.
Here's the thing. I want some time to go to. I want someone to put this on, like, get a live cam of this. I want you to go to a dinosaur museum, and then just very referentially ask the tour guide to tell you more about the elders. I will even pay your bail if it's needed in order to see that happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. We are Bingers Assemble. We'll be back with you on Monday, I guess, with another episode. Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week. Starting at 11 o'clock, we'll be doing the live watch with the patrons. And at 12 o'clock, we'll be doing the live stream. So we'll be back with you soon. Peace.
And remember, reality is just an agreed-upon illusion.
Nice.
And we're out.
Sorry if bye, live stream.